I thought the physical agony of pushing a human being out of my body would be the most painful part of my day, until I looked up through my tears and realized the doctor holding my legs was the same Alpha who had shattered my heart and abandoned me 7 months ago. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy emotional boy love stories with twists, drama, and second chances, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us bring you more stories like this one. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a part. Now let's get into the story. Part 1. The pain was not a wave, it was a tsunami. It didn't come and go. It crashed over me, pulling me under, holding me down until I was sure I would drown in it. Breathe, Mr. Sterling, breathe. The nurse's voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. I gripped the cold metal rails of the hospital bed, so hard my knuckles turned white. A guttural scream tore from my throat, raw and animalistic. I had done this alone for 7 months. I had survived the morning sickness alone. I had assembled the crib alone, weeping over the instructions at 3 a.m. I had driven myself to the hospital alone when my water broke in the middle of a thunderstorm. I could do this alone, too. I had to. I can't. I sobbed, my head thrashing against the pillow. Sweat matted my silver hair to my forehead. It hurts too much. Make it stop. Please, just make it stop. You're doing great, Julian. You're fully dilated. The nurse, a kind beta woman named Sarah, said soothingly, wiping my forehead with a damp cloth. But Dr. Evans is stuck in an emergency surgery with another patient. We've paged the on-call specialist. He's the head of obstetrics, the best in the city. He'll be here any second. I didn't care who it was. I didn't care if the janitor delivered my baby. I just wanted the pressure in my lower back to end. I wanted my son out. Safely. My baby, I gasped, squeezing my eyes shut as another contraction seized my body, turning my muscles into iron. Is he okay? Is his heart rate okay? The baby is fine, Julian. His heartbeat is strong. You're doing everything right. The automatic doors to the delivery suite whooshed open. A sudden change in the room's atmosphere made the hair on my arms stand up. It wasn't just the sterile smell of the hospital anymore. A scent hit me, a scent so familiar, so deeply ingrained in my soul that my body reacted before my brain did. Sandalwood, rain, and the sharp, metallic tang of an alpha's pheromones. My heart stopped, literally paused in my chest. No, it couldn't be. It was impossible. He was in London. He was accepting a prestigious fellowship. He was thousands of miles away, living the life he chose over me. Status, a deep baritone voice commanded. That voice. It was the voice that used to whisper promises against my neck. The voice that used to read poetry to me on rainy Sundays. The voice that had coldly told me, I can't do this anymore, Julian. I'm suffocating, before walking out the door and never looking back. I forced my heavy eyelids open. He was standing at the foot of the bed, scrubbing his hands, his back to me. He was broad-shouldered, tall, commanding. Even in generic blue scrubs, he looked like a king. He turned around, snapping on latex gloves, his face obscured by a surgical mask and a cap. But I knew those eyes. Steel gray. Cold, calculating, yet capable of burning with an intensity that could melt the world. Adrian, my ex-husband. The father of the child trying to tear his way out of me right now. He looked at the chart the nurse handed him, his brows furrowing. Patient name, Julian Sterling. Age 24. Omega. Primiparous. No complications recorded, but blood pressure is slightly elevated. He froze. He stopped reading. His hand, holding the metal clipboard, trembled. Just once. A microscopic glitch in his perfect, robotic composure. Slowly, terrifyingly slowly, he lifted his eyes from the chart. Our gazes locked. The air left the room. The sounds of the machines, the beeping monitors, the nurse's shuffling feet, everything vanished. It was just me and him. The Omega who had been left behind, and the Alpha who had done the leaving. Julian, he whispered. The name sounded foreign on his tongue, like a ghost story he was afraid to tell. Get him out, I hissed, panic rising in my chest faster than the pain. I tried to scoot back up the bed, away from him. Get him out. I don't want him. I want another doctor. Julian, please calm down. Sarah tried to hold my shoulders, but I shoved her away. No, you don't understand. I screamed, tears streaming down my face, mixing with the sweat. He can't be here. He can't touch me. Get him out. Adrian didn't move. He stood there, paralyzed, staring at my swollen belly, then back at my face. His eyes were wide, shock shattering his professional mask. He looked at my stomach as if it were a bomb that had just detonated. You're Adrian's voice cracked. You're pregnant. Get out. I shrieked, my voice breaking. Dr. Blackwood? Sarah asked nervously, looking between us. Do you know the patient? Adrian blinked, snapping back to reality. He looked at me, seeing the sheer terror and hatred in my eyes. Then he looked at the monitors. The baby's heart rate was spiking. My distress was hurting the child. He took a deep breath, and I watched the wall come down. The emotion vanished from his eyes, replaced by the icy, detached focus of a surgeon. I'm the attending physician, Adrian said, his voice dropping to a calm, authoritative register. The patient is in active labor. Transferring him now would risk the fetus. I am scrubbing in. No. I sobbed, but another contraction hit me, harder than any before. I curled in on myself, a low moan escaping my lips. Julian. Adrian's voice was suddenly right beside my ear. He had moved to the side of the bed. He wasn't touching me, but I could feel his heat. Listen to me. Don't talk to me, I whimpered. You can hate me later, he said, his voice low and urgent. You can scream at me, curse me, throw things at me. I deserve it. But right now, your baby needs you to focus. Our baby needs to be born safely. Our baby. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. He knew. Of course he knew. The timing, the scent. An alpha always knows his own blood. He's not yours. I spat out through gritted teeth, though the lie was feeble. We will discuss that later, Adrian said firmly. He moved to the foot of the bed, sitting on the stool. Check dilation. He checked me. His touch was professional, clinical, yet my body remembered him. It betrayed me, softening at his scent even as my mind screamed in protest. 10 centimeters, Adrian announced. Julian, on the next contraction, I need you to push. Hard. Chin to your chest, hold your breath, and push like your life depends on it. I can't, I cried, shaking my head. I'm too tired. I can't do it. Yes, you can. Adrian's voice was a command, wrapping around my omega instincts. You are the strongest person I have ever known. You survived me, didn't you? You can do this. That hurt. It hurt more than the contraction. Contracting. Sarah announced. Push, Julian. Now. I screamed and pushed. I pushed all the anger, all the loneliness, all the nights I cried myself to sleep into that effort. I pushed until black spots danced in my vision. Good. Very good, Adrian said. I see the head. He has hair. Lots of it. Is it silver? I gasped, collapsing back against the pillows. Adrian's eyes crinkled at the corners, a ghost of the smile I used to love. It looks dark. Like mine. A sob caught in my throat. Of course. He would look like him. A constant reminder of the man who chose a career over our family. The labor went on for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. Adrian was efficient, calm, and maddeningly perfect. He guided me, encouraged me, his voice a steady anchor in the storm of pain. For a moment, just a fleeting moment, we were a team again. It was like the old days, where we moved in sync, understanding each other without words. One more, Julian. Give me everything you have. The shoulders are almost out. I hate you, I sobbed, grabbing my knees. I hate you so much, Adrian. I know, he said softly. Push. I screamed one last time, a sound that tore through the very fabric of my soul, and pushed. A sudden release of pressure. A rush of fluid. And then silence. I lifted my head, panic seizing my heart instantly. Why isn't he crying? Adrian, why isn't he crying? Adrian was moving fast. He held the tiny, slick body in his hands. The baby was pale, too still. Suction, Adrian barked. Sarah handed him the device immediately. Adrian. I tried to sit up, but my legs wouldn't work. Is he? Quiet, Adrian commanded, his focus entirely on the small bundle in his hands. He was rubbing the baby's back vigorously with a towel. Come on, little one. Come on. Breathe. Time stretched. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. It felt like a lifetime. The room was deafeningly silent. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Then a cough. A sputter. And then a loud, angry wail filled the room. I collapsed back onto the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. He's alive. Oh God, he's alive. He's perfect. Adrian's voice was thick, unrecognizable. He quickly clamped and cut the cord, a job usually reserved for the father or partner. He did it with practiced efficiency, but I saw his hand linger on the baby's stomach for a fraction of a second too long. Sarah took the baby to the warmer to weigh and clean him, but I couldn't take my eyes off Adrian. He stood there, his gloves covered in fluids, his chest heaving. He stripped off his gloves and mask. For the first time in 7 months, I saw his full face. He looked older, tired. There were dark circles under those steel-gray eyes, and a shadow of stubble on his jaw. He didn't look like the triumphant, successful doctor I imagined he would be in London. He looked haunted. He turned to me. The nurses were busy with the baby. "Julian," he said, stepping closer. He looked like he wanted to touch me, to brush the wet hair from my forehead, but he kept his hands by his sides. "Stay away from me," I whispered, though I had no energy left to put heat behind the words. "I didn't know," he said, his voice trembling. "You have to believe me. I didn't know you were pregnant when I left." "Would it have mattered?" I asked, looking him dead in the eye. "You said you didn't want a family. You said I was holding you back. You said you needed to be free." Adrian flinched as if I had slapped him. I was wrong. I was scared. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk, Adrian. Leaving your bonded mate without a word is a betrayal. "I came back," he said urgently. "I came back 3 weeks ago. I've been looking for you. I went to our old apartment, but you had moved. I called your mother, but she hung up on me. I took this job at this hospital hoping I might run into you in the city. I never imagined." He looked toward the warmer, where my son, our son, was now wrapped in a blue blanket, his cries settling into soft whimpers. "I want to see him," I demanded, ignoring Adrian's confession. Sarah brought the bundle to me. "Here is your beautiful boy, Julian. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. She placed him on my chest, skin to skin. The moment I felt his warmth, the rest of the world faded away. He was tiny, perfect. He had my nose, but the shape of his eyes, that was all Adrian. He opened his eyes, blinking against the harsh lights, and I saw they were a deep, dark blue. "Leo," I whispered, kissing his damp forehead. "My little Leo." I felt a shadow fall over us. Adrian was standing right beside the bed, looking down at the baby with an expression of such raw, agonizing longing that it almost made me pity him. Almost. "Leo," Adrian repeated the name, tasting it. "Lion. Strong. He doesn't have a father," I said coldly, shielding the baby with my arm. "Put unknown on the birth certificate." Adrian's jaw tightened. The alpha in him flared, filling the room with the scent of burnt sugar and ozone, a sign of distress and anger. "I am his father, Julian. You cannot deny biology." "I can deny you access," I countered, my protective instincts roaring to life. "You gave up your rights when you walked out." "I am not walking out again," Adrian said, his voice dropping to a dangerous, possessive growl. "I am staying. I am going to fix this." "You can't fix this." I closed my eyes, exhaustion finally claiming me. "Just leave. Please. If you ever loved me, just leave us alone." There was a long silence. I thought he had left. I hoped he had left. But then, I felt a hand cover mine, the hand that was resting on Leo's back. His hand was warm, large, engulfing mine. "I never stopped loving you," Adrian whispered, his voice breaking. "And I am going to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Starting now." I wanted to pull my hand away. I wanted to scream. But my body was too heavy, too tired. Darkness was creeping in at the edges of my vision. As I drifted off into sleep, the last thing I heard wasn't the beeping of the monitor or the nurses chatting. It was Adrian's voice, close to my ear, sending a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "Sleep, my Omega. I've got you now. And I'm never letting go again." And then, just before I went under completely, he added something else. Something that chilled my blood and made my heart skip a beat, even in my sleep-deprived haze. "I saw the blood tests, Julian. I know about the sickness. Why didn't you tell me you were dying?" End of part 1. Part 2. The darkness was heavy, thick like velvet, wrapping around my mind and refusing to let go. I wanted to stay in it. In the darkness, there was no pain. There was no betrayal. There was no Adrian standing over me with eyes full of regret and secrets. But a sound pierced through the veil. A soft, rhythmic beeping. Beep, beep, beep. And a scent. That damned scent. Sandalwood and rain, but now mixed with something sharper, antiseptic and stale coffee. My eyes fluttered open. The harsh fluorescent lights of the recovery room stung, forcing me to squint. My entire body felt like it had been run over by a truck. My hips ached, my chest felt heavy, and there was a dull, throbbing pain in my lower abdomen. "You're awake." The voice came from the chair beside the bed. I didn't need to look to know who it was. My Omega instincts, traitorous as they were, had already catalogued his presence the second I regained consciousness. I turned my head slowly. Adrian was sitting there, still in his scrubs, though he had removed the gown. His elbows were resting on his knees, his hands clasped tightly together, supporting his chin. He looked wrecked. The confident, icy doctor from the delivery room was gone. In his place was a man who looked like he hadn't slept in a decade. Where is he? My voice was a rasp, dry as sandpaper. Where is Leo? Adrian straightened up immediately, pouring a cup of water from a plastic pitcher with shaking hands. He's in the NICU. Just for observation. He's fine, Julian. He's perfectly healthy. Strong lungs, good weight. He's sleeping. He held the cup to my lips. I stared at it, then at him. I wanted to knock it out of his hand. I wanted to scream at him to get out. But my throat was burning. I took a small sip, flinching when his fingers brushed against my cheek. You said. I choked out, pushing the cup away. Before I passed out. You said something. Adrian froze. He set the cup down on the rolling table slowly, deliberately, as if buying time. When he turned back to me, his steel-gray eyes were filled with a terrifying mixture of professional detachment and personal agony. I looked at your blood panels, Julian. The ones the nurses took when you were admitted. And, I challenged, trying to sit up, but my arms trembled too much to support my weight. Adrian reached out to help, but I slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. Just tell me. He sighed a heavy, ragged sound. Your cortisol levels are through the roof. Your white blood cell count is abysmal. And your heart. Julian, you have severe stress-induced cardiomyopathy. I stared at him blankly. English, Adrian. It's sometimes called broken heart syndrome, he said softly, the medical term falling from his lips like a curse. But in omegas, it's more complex. It happens when a bonded omega undergoes extreme, prolonged emotional distress and physical isolation from their alpha during pregnancy. Your body, it's been fighting a war against itself for 7 months. The room went silent. The only sound was the monitor, counting out the rhythm of my failing heart. So, I whispered, a bitter laugh bubbling up in my chest. You really did break my heart. Literally. Adrian flinched. He looked away, his jaw tightening until a muscle feathered in his cheek. The toxicity levels in your blood are critical. Your body poured all its resources into keeping the baby alive, essentially cannibalizing your own immune system to protect him. Now that he's born, your system is crashing. Am I dying? I asked the question simply, without fear. Strangely, I didn't feel afraid. I just felt tired. So incredibly tired. Adrian stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the linoleum floor. He began pacing the small room, his agitation filling the space with the scent of ozone and distress. No, he growled. I won't let that happen. I've already called in a specialist from Zurich. I've updated your chart. We're starting you on aggressive immunotherapy and... Stop, I interrupted him. He stopped pacing and looked at me, his chest heaving. I am not letting you die, Julian. Do you hear me? I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you never want to see me again. I am going to save you. Why? I asked, watching him. Why do you care now? You left, Adrian. You chose the fellowship. You chose London. You chose yourself. I was a coward, he shouted, his voice cracking. The sudden outburst made the nurse at the station outside glance through the glass window. Adrian lowered his voice, stepping closer to the bed, his hands gripping the rail. I was a coward, Julian. My family, they never approved of us. You know that. They threatened to cut me off, to ruin my career before it even started. They told me an omega like you, from a poor family, with no connections, would be an anchor around my neck. And you believed them, I said, tears pricking my eyes. Not tears of sadness, but of anger. Pure, molten anger. I was young. I was stupid. I thought if I established myself first, if I became undeniable in my field, I could come back for you. I thought you would wait. You didn't ask me to wait. I cried, my voice rising. You just left. You packed your bags while I was at work and left a note on the counter. I can't do this anymore. That's all you said. I panicked. Adrian admitted, his face twisting in pain. I tried to call you 1,000 times after I got to London. I wrote letters I never sent. I was ashamed, Julian. Every day I was away, the shame grew heavier. I didn't think I deserved to come back. Until I couldn't take it anymore. I quit the fellowship. I told my parents to go to hell. I came back to find you, to beg for forgiveness. He reached through the rails and took my hand. This time, I didn't have the strength to pull away. But I was too late, he whispered, looking at my pale, thin fingers. I came back and found you like this. Broken. Sick. And it's my fault. It's all my fault. I looked at our joined hands. His hand was large, warm, capable. It was the hand of a surgeon, a healer. but it was also the hand of the man who had destroyed my life. You can't fix this with medicine, Adrian, I said quietly. Broken heart syndrome, there's no pill for that. You can't prescribe away the fact that I spent 7 months crying on the bathroom floor, wondering what was wrong with me, that my own husband couldn't love me. I know, he said, tears finally spilling over his lashes. But there is a treatment. He looked up at me, his eyes intense, burning with that blue flame I remembered so well. What? Pheromone therapy, he said. Bond reinforcement. Your body is rejecting the separation. It needs the bond to be reestablished. It needs me. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. You have got to be kidding me. You think the cure for me being sick of you is more of you? Biologically, yes, he said, slipping back into doctor mode, though his eyes remained desperate. If I stay close to you, if I provide skin-to-skin contact, scent marking, your cortisol will drop. Your immune system will stabilize. It's the only way to reverse the cardiomyopathy quickly. I pulled my hand away from his grip. No, Julian. No, I said firmly. I'd rather die. Don't say that, he snapped. Think about Leo. The name hung in the air. Leo. He needs a father, Julian. He needs a parent who is alive. If you die, do you really want me raising him alone? Because I will. I'm his father. I have rights. You wouldn't, I gasped. I would do anything to keep you alive, he said darkly. Even if it means using our son as leverage. Even if it means you hating me for the rest of eternity. I will not let you die on my watch. Before I could respond, the door opened. A different nurse walked in, pushing a clear plastic bassinet. Sorry to interrupt, she said cheerfully, oblivious to the thick tension in the room. But someone is hungry and refusing the bottle. We thought maybe he wants his papa. She wheeled the bassinet next to my bed. Inside, wrapped tightly like a little burrito, was Leo. He was awake, his tiny face scrunching up, preparing for a wail. My anger evaporated instantly. Give him to me. The nurse lifted him and placed him in my arms. He was so light, yet he felt like the heaviest thing in the world. The moment he touched my chest, he settled. He let out a soft sigh, turning his head toward my scent. I looked down at him. He was beautiful. He had a tuft of dark hair and rosy cheeks. He opened his eyes, and I saw it again, that deep, endless blue. Adrian's eyes. I felt a weight on the mattress. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed. He didn't ask permission. He just sat there, leaning in, his eyes fixed on the baby. Can I? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. I hesitated. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him he lost the right to hold our son the day he left. But then I looked at Leo. He was tiny, vulnerable. He deserved to be loved. He didn't ask to be born into this mess. Wash your hands first, I muttered. Adrian practically scrambled to the sink, scrubbing his hands with frantic intensity. He came back, drying them on his pants, and reached out. I didn't hand Leo over. Instead, I adjusted the blanket so Adrian could touch him. Adrian reached out with a trembling finger and stroked Leo's cheek. The baby turned his head toward the touch, his tiny mouth opening, searching. He smells like you, Adrian murmured, a look of pure wonder on his face. Vanilla and milk. But he has my nose. Unfortunately, I said dryly. Adrian chuckled. It was a wet, broken sound. Hi, Leo. I'm your dad. The word hung there. Dad. Leo gripped Adrian's finger with his tiny fist. Adrian let out a breath that sounded like a sob. He leaned his forehead down, resting it gently against the baby's blanket-covered tummy. I'm so sorry, Leo, he whispered into the fabric. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. Watching the two parts of my heart interact, something inside me cracked. The wall I had built around myself wasn't strong enough to withstand this. The biological pull of the family unit, Alpha, Omega, Pup, was overwhelming. My heart gave a painful thud, fluttering in my chest. The monitor beeped faster. Beep, 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 beep. Adrian's head snapped up. He looked at the monitor, then at me. Your heart rate is spiking. I'm fine, I lied, though I felt dizzy. The room was spinning slightly. You're not fine, Adrian said, standing up. Nurse, take the baby back to the nursery. No. I clutched Leo tighter. Don't take him. Julian, you need to rest. Your body is under too much stress, Adrian argued, reaching for the baby. I said no. I tried to push Adrian away, but my limbs felt like lead. The dizziness turned into a wave of nausea. The edges of my vision began to blur again. Code blue imminent, get the crash cart on standby. Adrian barked at the nurse, his voice changing instantly from father to commander. No, don't. I mumbled, my head lolling back against the pillow. Don't take him. I've got him, Julian. I've got him. Adrian gently pried Leo from my weakening arms and handed him to the nurse. Take him. Now. The nurse wheeled Leo out quickly. I was alone with Adrian again. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a vice. I gasped for air, but my lungs wouldn't fill. Breathe, Julian. Adrian was hovering over me, checking my pulse, listening to my heart with a stethoscope he pulled from his pocket. Damn it. Arrhythmia. You're going into atrial fibrillation. He grabbed a syringe from the cart next to the bed and injected something into my foreline. This will slow your heart rate. Stay with me. The drug hit my system fast. The crushing weight on my chest eased slightly, but the exhaustion that followed was profound. I couldn't move. I could barely blink. You see, Adrian's face was close to mine, his eyes wide and terrified. This is what I'm talking about. You're on the edge, Julian. One wrong move, one too many stressors, and your heart stops. Let me go home, I whispered, a tear sliding down my temple into my hair. I just want to go home to my apartment. Your apartment is a fourth-floor walk-up with no elevator and black mold in the bathroom, Adrian said sharply. I saw the address on your file. I went there while you were in labor to get your things. It's freezing cold and damp. If you go back there with a newborn, in your condition, you will be dead in a week. It's all I can afford, I admitted, the shame burning hotter than the fever. Adrian looked at me, and his expression hardened. He made a decision. I could see the shift in his eyes, the moment he stopped asking and started taking control. You're not going back there, he stated firmly. You can't stop me, I mumbled sleepily, the drugs dragging me under. I'll sign discharge papers. I've already had you declared medically incompetent to make that decision due to your critical state, Adrian said. As your attending physician, and as your legal next of kin, because we never filed the divorce papers, Julian, I am making the decision for you. My eyes snapped open, wide with shock. We were still married. You never signed the papers I sent, Adrian said quietly. And I never pushed for it. So yes, legally, you are still my husband. And Leo is my legitimate heir. You planned this, I accused, though my voice was slurring. I planned nothing, he said, brushing my hair back from my clammy forehead. But I am using every weapon I have to save you. I'm moving you. To where? To my house, he said. It's a 20-minute drive. I have a guest wing set up. I've hired private nurses for you and a night nanny for Leo. You will have 24-hour care. You will have warmth, good food, and safety. I don't want your charity, I spat. It's not charity, he yelled, losing his composure again. It's penance. Let me do this, Julian. Let me take care of you. Please. He leaned down, his forehead resting against the rail of the bed, his voice dropping to a broken whisper. I can't lose you again. I won't survive it. I looked at the top of his head, at the dark hair that was slightly disheveled. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream and fight. But my heart, my broken, stupid heart, it calmed down. As he stayed close to me, his scent filling my space, the monitor's beeping slowed. Beep, beep, beep. My body was betraying me. It was responding to him. The pain in my chest subsided not just because of the drugs, but because he was there. I hate you, I whispered, closing my eyes. I know, Adrian replied softly, reaching out to stroke my hand. This time, I didn't pull away. Hate me all you want. Just live. Dr. Evans? The nurse popped her head in again. The ambulance transport is ready. Adrian stood up, buttoning his white coat, the mask of authority sliding back into place. But before he turned away, he leaned down and pressed a kiss to my forehead. It was brief, searing, and possessive. Let's go home, Julian. I was too weak to argue, too weak to fight. As they transferred me from the bed to the gurney, I felt a strange sense of resignation. I was entering the lion's den. I was going back to the man who broke me. But as they wheeled me down the corridor, Adrian walking right beside me with his hand on my shoulder, for the first time in 7 months, I didn't feel cold. I felt safe. And that terrified me more than the dying ever could. End of part 2. Part 3. The ambulance ride was a blur of motion sickness, and the rhythmic beep of the cardiac monitor strapped to my chest. I didn't see the city passing by. I only saw the sterile white ceiling of the vehicle and Adrian's hand, resting firmly on the railing of the gurney, his knuckles white from how hard he was gripping it. When the doors finally opened, the cold night air hit my face, shocking my system. I expected a hospital transfer entrance. Instead, I saw crushed gravel, manicured hedges, and the imposing facade of a modern mansion that looked more like a fortress than a home. Welcome home, Adrian murmured, though the word home tasted like ash in my mouth. This isn't my home, I whispered weakly as the paramedics unloaded me. My home has a leaky faucet and peeling wallpaper. Your home is where your family is, Adrian corrected gently, signaling the staff. I was wheeled into a grand foyer with high ceilings and marble floors. It was beautiful, undeniably so, but it felt cold. Impersonal. Like a museum where nothing was meant to be touched. Upstairs, Adrian directed the paramedics. The East Wing. I've had the room prepped. They carried me up a sweeping staircase. My body felt heavy, useless. I hated this helplessness. I hated being carried like a broken doll into the castle of the man who broke me. The room they brought me to was vast. A king-sized bed dominated the center, flanked by floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a dark garden. But what caught my eye wasn't the luxury, it was the medical equipment. And 4-pole, a vitals monitor, an oxygen concentrator. He had turned a guest suite into a high-end hospital room. Careful with the transfer, Adrian instructed, his voice sharp with anxiety. As they lifted me onto the bed, the softness of the mattress almost made me weep. It was like sinking into a cloud. My body, aching from labor and the stress of the cardiomyopathy, practically melted. Thank you, gentlemen. Adrian dismissed the paramedics, pressing cash into their hands. I'll take it from here. When the door clicked shut, the silence was deafening. Just me, Adrian, and Leo, who was sleeping in a portable bassinet Adrian had carried in himself. I need to hook you up to the house monitors, Adrian said, his voice switching to that clinical tone I was beginning to loathe. He approached the bed, electrode patches in his hand. I can do it myself, I muttered, trying to sit up. Julian, please, he said, pushing me back down gently but firmly. Don't fight me on this. Your heart rate is still unstable. Any exertion could trigger another episode. I glared at him, but I let him attach the leads to my chest. His fingers were warm against my skin. Everywhere he touched, my skin tingled, a physiological betrayal. My Omega biology recognized him, welcomed him, craved him. It didn't care about the divorce papers or the abandoned apartment. It just knew Alpha. There, he said, stepping back to check the screen. 88 beats per minute. High but stable. Where am I really, Adrian? I asked, looking around the opulent room. This isn't a guest room. It's right next to the master suite, isn't it? Adrian didn't answer immediately. He walked over to the bassinet and adjusted Leo's blanket. It's the most secure room in the house. And yes, it connects to my room. He pointed to a door on the far wall. I'll be right there. If you need anything, water, pain meds, if you just feel scared, you call out. I'll hear you. I won't be calling you, I said stubbornly. We'll see, he replied, unbothered. Now sleep. You need to recover. I can't sleep, I said, my eyes drifting to the bassinet. He's going to wake up soon. He needs to eat. I've hired a night nurse, Julian. She's downstairs. No. The panic flared in my chest again, sharp and hot. No nurses. No strangers. He stays with me. Adrian sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. You are too weak to lift him, Julian. If you drop him. I won't drop him. You can barely lift your own head. Adrian snapped, his patience fraying. Then he took a deep breath, centering himself. Okay. Fine. No nurse tonight. I'll do it. You. I scoffed. You've never held a baby in your life before today. I'm a quick learner, he said. He pulled a plush armchair closer to the bed. I'm staying right here. Sleep. Exhaustion was a heavy tide, and I couldn't swim against it anymore. I closed my eyes, intending to rest for just a minute. I woke up to the sound of soft crying. My eyes flew open. The room was dim, lit only by a warm night light in the corner. I tried to push myself up, but my arms trembled violently. Shoo, it's okay, little lion. Papa's here. I froze. Adrian was standing by the window, rocking Leo in his arms. He had shed his scrub top and was wearing a simple white t-shirt that stretched tight across his broad shoulders. He looked domestic. Soft. Is he hungry? I croaked, my voice thick with sleep. Adrian turned. He's fussy. I think he's hungry, yes. But he smells you, but he can't feel you. He's confused. Bring him here, I demanded, struggling to sit up against the pillows. Adrian hesitated, then walked over. He placed Leo gently in my arms. The baby immediately rooted against my chest, searching. This was the part one had dreaded. The feeding. It was intimate, messy, and hard. And doing it in front of my ex-husband felt like a violation. Turn around, I said. Julian, I'm a doctor. I've seen everything, Adrian said, though he dutifully turned his back. I fumbled with my hospital gown. Leo was crying louder now, frustrated. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't get the latch right. I hissed in frustration, tears stinging my eyes. "Damn it," I whispered. "Come on, Leo. Please. Do you need help?" Adrian asked, his back still turned. "No," I gritted out. Leo wailed, a high-pitched sound of distress. My heart monitor started beeping faster. Beep, beep, beep. Adrian turned around. He didn't ask this time. He sat on the edge of the bed. "Stop being stubborn," he said gently. "Stress inhibits let down. You're starving him because you're too proud to let me help." That hit me hard. He was right. I was putting my pride above my son. "Fine," I whispered, defeated. "Help me." Adrian's face softened. He reached out, his large hands incredibly gentle. He guided Leo's head, adjusted his position. Then, his fingers brushed against my skin to help with the latch. The contact was electric. A jolt went through me, straight to my core. My breath hitched. Adrian froze for a second, his eyes locking with mine. His pupils were blown wide, swallowing the gray. "Relax," he murmured, his voice dropping an octave. "Breathe, Julian." Leo latched. The relief was instant. I let out a shaky breath, leaning my head back against the headboard. "Good," Adrian whispered. "He's eating." He didn't pull his hand away immediately. He let his fingers linger near Leo's head, brushing against my chest. It wasn't sexual, at least not entirely. It was grounding. "Your heart rate is dropping," Adrian noted, glancing at the monitor. "It's working." "What is?" "The bond," he said quietly. "Being near me. Being near the baby. Your body is regulating itself." I looked at him, really looked at him in the soft light. "Why did you really come back, Adrian? Don't give me the 'I missed you' speech. You're the most ambitious alpha I've ever met. You don't quit a fellowship for love." Adrian looked down at his hands. He was silent for a long time. The only sound was Leo's soft swallowing and the hum of the oxygen machine. "I killed a patient," he said. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "What?" I breathed. Not technically," Adrian clarified, his voice hollow. "It was a complex surgery. A placenta accreta. I did everything right by the book. But she died on the table. She bled out." He looked up at me, his eyes haunted. "Her husband, he was in the waiting room. When I went to tell him, he collapsed. He didn't scream. He just broke. And in that moment, looking at a man whose life was destroyed because his omega was gone, all I could think about was you." He swallowed hard. "I realized that if you died, if something happened to you while I was thousands of miles away playing God, I would be that man. I realized that saving lives meant nothing if I had destroyed my own." I stared at him. This wasn't the arrogant Adrian I knew. This was a man who had seen the abyss. "So you came back out of guilt," I concluded quietly. "You came back because you were scared of being alone, not because you wanted me." "I came back because I realized you were the only thing that made me feel human," Adrian said fiercely. "In London, I was a machine. I was brilliant, sure. But I was cold. I didn't feel anything until I thought of you." "That's not love, Adrian," I said, a tear sliding down my cheek. "That's dependency." "Maybe," he admitted. "Or maybe it's just the truth. I need you, Julian. I need you to be alive. I need you to be okay." Leo finished eating and pulled away, falling into a milk-drunk sleep instantly. Adrian reached out and took him, burping him gently over his shoulder. "You should sleep," Adrian said, standing up. "I'll take him. I'll put him in the bassinet." "Stay." The word slipped out before I could stop it. Adrian paused. "What?" I gestured vaguely to the chair. "Just stay in the room. If the monitor goes off." I couldn't admit that I was terrified of the silence. I couldn't admit that his scent was the only thing keeping the crushing pain in my chest at bay. Adrian nodded slowly. "I'm not going anywhere." He settled back into the armchair, stretching his long legs out. He watched me as I slid down under the covers. "Julian." "Yeah. I bought this house the day I got back," he said into the darkness. "I filled the nursery with things I thought you'd like. I didn't know if I'd ever find you. But I had to believe that if I built a home, you might come back to it." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The wall around my heart was crumbling, brick by brick, and I was too tired to mix more mortar. The next morning, reality set in with the sunrise. My body felt stiff, but the crushing weight on my chest was slightly lighter. I woke up to the smell of coffee and pancakes. "Good morning." Adrian walked in, holding a tray. He looked fresher, showered, wearing casual jeans and a sweater. "Breakfast in bed. Doctor's orders." "I can walk," I grumbled, pushing the covers off. Bathroom is to the left, he pointed. Do not lock the door. If I don't hear water running or movement, I'm coming in. You're insufferable. I'm thorough, he corrected. I managed to shuffle to the bathroom. Seeing myself in the mirror was a shock. I looked like a ghost. Pale, dark circles, collarbones protruding sharply. I looked sick. When I came back out, Adrian was feeding Leo a bottle of pumped milk. I must have done that in my sleep. No, supplements probably. Here. Adrian handed me a plate. Eat. You need the calories. I took a bite of the pancake. It was blueberry. My favorite. He remembered. So, I said, chewing slowly. What happens now? I live here until my heart decides to work again. And then what? You sue me for custody. Adrian put the bottle down and looked at me seriously. No. We co-parent. You live here as long as you need. Forever if you want. But at a minimum, until the cardiologist clears you. And if I want to leave, then I'll help you find a place that is safe, he said. But you are not taking my son back to a slum, Julian. I won't allow it. He's our son, I corrected him. Exactly, Adrian leaned forward. Our son, which means we have to figure this out. The hate, the anger, we have to put it on a shelf. For him. I can't just turn it off, Adrian. I'm not asking you to. He stood up and walked over to the bed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small orange bottle. Your meds, beta blockers and stress reducers. I took the pills, swallowing them dry. I have rounds at the hospital in an hour, Adrian said, checking his watch. The nanny, Mrs. Gable, will be here. She's an Omega, very grandmotherly. You'll like her. You're leaving. Panic spiked again. I have to work, Julian. I'm the chief of surgery now. Right, I looked away. Go save lives. I'll be back at 5 p.m. sharp, he promised. Call me if anything happens. Anything. He leaned in, and for a second, I thought he was going to kiss me. I held my breath, my heart fluttering. Not in pain, but in anticipation. But he pulled back at the last second, just brushing his thumb over my cheekbone. Be good, Julian. Don't die on me today. When he left, the room felt instantly colder. The scent of sandalwood faded, leaving only the sterile smell of medicine. I looked at Leo, who was kicking his legs in the bassinet. Well, kid, I whispered. It's just us again, in the beast's castle. But as I lay there, feeling the lingering warmth of Adrian's touch on my cheek, I realized the scariest part wasn't being trapped here. The scariest part was that, deep down in the treasonous Omega part of my brain, I didn't want him to leave. I wanted him to come back. I wanted him to hold me. And that desire was more dangerous to my heart than any disease. Later that afternoon, I tried to stand up to change Leo's diaper. Mrs. Gable was downstairs making tea. I can do this, I told myself. I'm his father. I lifted Leo. He was heavier than I expected. Or maybe I was just weaker. As I turned toward the changing table, the room tilted. Gray spots danced in my vision. My knees buckled. Whoa! I didn't hit the floor. I hit a wall of muscle. Adrian. I forgot my stethoscope, he breathed heavily, catching me and Leo in one smooth motion. Good thing I came back. I was draped against him, my face pressed into his neck. The scent was overwhelming. It was like a drug. My heart hammered, but it was a strong, rhythmic rhythm. I've got you, he whispered, his arms tightening around me. I should have pushed him away. I should have demanded to be put down. But instead, I let my head drop onto his shoulder. I breathed him in. Don't let go, I whispered, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Adrian stiffened, then melted. He buried his face in my hair. Never, he vowed. Never again. For a moment, just a moment, we weren't ex-husbands or enemies. We were just two terrified parents clinging to each other in the wreckage of our past. But then his phone rang. He didn't let go of me to answer it. But the ringtone shattered the spell. It was the hospital. The real world was calling. And I knew, as I pulled away from his warmth, that surviving this, surviving him, was going to be the hardest fight of my life. End of part 3. Part 4. The ringtone was sharp, cutting through the fragile atmosphere like a scalpel. Adrian didn't let go of me immediately. For a split second, his grip tightened, his nose burying deeper into the crook of my neck, inhaling my scent as if it were oxygen and he was drowning. Then duty called. He pulled back, his eyes dark and dilated, pupils swallowing the iris. He looked at me, really looked at me, with a hunger that made my knees weak. Then he cleared his throat, the professional mask slamming back into place. Dr. Ashford, he answered the phone, his voice dropping to that commanding baritone. He listened for a moment, his jaw clenching. Stabilize him. Start the amiodarone drip. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at me. I was still leaning against the changing table, feeling cold where his body had just been. "I have to go," he said, the regret palpable. "Emergency bypass. It's going to be a long night." "Go," I said, wrapping my arms around myself. "You're the chief. They need you." "I don't want to go," he admitted, stepping closer but not touching me. "I want to stay here. With you. With Leo." "We'll be fine," I lied. My heart was already fluttering nervously at the thought of being alone in this massive house again. Adrian hesitated. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key card. "This opens the master suite. My scent is strongest in there. If you feel panic rising, or if the pain comes back, go in there. Please." I stared at the card. He was giving me permission to enter his sanctuary, to invade his private space. "I won't need it," I said stubbornly. "Take it," he pressed it into my hand, his fingers lingering on my palm. "Just in case." He leaned down, kissing the top of Leo's head, then paused near my ear. "Eat dinner. Take your meds. I'll be back before you wake up." When the front door clicked shut downstairs, the silence rushed back in. But this time, I was holding the key card. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a prisoner. I felt like something else. Something I wasn't ready to name. The next 3 days were a blur of routine. A strange, domestic routine that felt like a dream I was terrified to wake up from. Mrs. Gable, the beta nanny Adrian had hired, was a godsend. She was a plump, motherly woman with kind eyes who treated me not like a patient, but like a son. She took care of the laundry, cooked nutrient-dense meals designed for recovering omegas, and watched Leo when I needed to nap. But the real focus was Adrian. He was gone during the days, fighting death in the operating room. But every evening at 6 p.m., like clockwork, he would walk through the door. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, but the moment he saw us, his face would light up. He would take Leo, change him, walk him around the garden. Then he would sit with me. We didn't talk much about the past. We talked about Leo's feeding schedule, about the weather, about his patience. It was safe conversation, neutral ground, but my body was betraying me. Every time he walked into the room, my heart monitor would steady. Every time he accidentally brushed my arm, a spark of warmth would chase away the cold ache in my chest. My broken heart syndrome was healing. The cardiologist came by on Tuesday and confirmed it. My ejection fraction was up. My heart was pumping stronger. Because he was here. On Thursday afternoon, a storm rolled in. Thunder shook the windows of the mansion, and the sky turned a bruised purple. I had always hated storms. They reminded me of the night my father died. I was in the guest room, trying to read a book, but I couldn't focus. The air pressure was dropping, and my instincts were screaming. Unsafe. Cold. Need protection. I found myself pacing. My skin felt too tight. I felt an overwhelming urge to build, to gather. I grabbed the pillows from the bed and threw them on the floor in the corner of the room. The darkest corner, away from the windows. Then the duvet. Then the extra blankets from the closet. It wasn't enough. It didn't smell right. It smelled like lavender detergent. Sterile. Clean. I needed earth. Wood. Rain. Alpha. Without thinking, really without making a conscious decision, I grabbed the key card Adrian had given me. I walked to the connecting door and swiped it. The lock clicked. I pushed the door open. The scent hit me instantly. It was intense, heavy, and purely Adrian. This was his den. His territory. The room was masculine, decorated in dark blues and mahogany. A massive bed sat in the center. But I didn't care about the furniture. I went straight to the walk-in closet. I grabbed a gray hoodie. His. I brought it to my face and inhaled deeply. The relief was instantaneous, like a shot of morphine. My trembling shoulders relaxed. I grabbed another one, and a t-shirt, and a soft flannel robe. I carried my armful of stolen treasures back to my room, dropping them into the pile of blankets. I arranged them carefully, creating a circle, a soft hollow in the center. A nest. I curled up inside it, pulling Adrian's hoodie over my head. It swallowed me whole, sleeves hanging past my hands. I wrapped the flannel robe around my legs. Surrounded by his scent, the thunder outside seemed to fade away. I felt safe, protected, claimed. I closed my eyes and drifted into the most peaceful sleep I had had in 7 months. Julian. The voice was soft, hesitant. I woke up slowly. The room was dark, lit only by the lightning flashing outside. Adrian was crouching in front of my nest. He was still in his work clothes, a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up and dark slacks. He looked awestruck. My eyes snapped open. Reality crashed down on me. I was an adult man. I was divorced, technically. And I was curled up in a pile of blankets on the floor, wearing my ex-husband's clothes, in a nest I had built like a feral omega in heat. Heat flooded my face, hotter than any fever. I scrambled backward, trying to pull the hoodie off. I didn't. I don't know why I did this. I'm sorry. I'll put them back. Stop. Adrian's voice was rough. He reached out and caught my hands, stopping me from removing the hoodie. Don't take it off. It's humiliating, I whispered, tears of shame pricking my eyes. I'm not an animal. I don't know what's wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with you, Adrian said firmly, his thumb stroking the back of my hand. You are an omega recovering from trauma. Nesting is a natural response. It means you're feeling safe enough to let your guard down. He looked at the nest, at his clothes woven into the blankets. A strange look crossed his face. Pride. Possessiveness? You chose my clothes, he murmured. You wanted my scent. I was cold, I lied weakly. Adrian smiled, a sad, knowing smile. It's okay, Julian. You can have them. You can have all of them. I have plenty. He shifted, sitting on the floor beside the nest, not entering it. He respected the boundary. Can I sit here with you for a bit? The storm is getting worse. I nodded, pulling my knees to my chest. We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the rain lashing against the glass. Why did you keep the letters? I asked suddenly. Adrian froze. What letters? I went into your study yesterday, I admitted, looking for a pen. I found the box, the wooden one on the top shelf. Adrian closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the wall. You read them. Some of them, I said. The one from the first month you were in London. The one where you said you couldn't sleep because the silence was too loud. He let out a shaky breath. I wrote one every week. I never sent them because I thought I had lost the right to talk to you. I thought you would burn them without reading. I probably would have, I admitted brutally. Back then. What about now? He asked, turning his head to look at me. Now, I don't know. I picked at a loose thread on his hoodie. In the letters, you sounded broken. You sounded like me. I was, Adrian said. I am. The fellowship was a nightmare, Julian. Everyone congratulated me, told me I was the future of medicine. But every time I walked into my empty apartment, I felt like I was dying. I started taking extra shifts just so I didn't have to go home. Why didn't you just call? I whispered. Why didn't you just pick up the phone and say, I made a mistake? Because of my mother, he said. The venom in his voice was startling. Victoria, I asked. I remembered her. A cold, imperious alpha woman who looked at me like I was dirt on her designer shoes. She told me, Adrian said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage, that she had spoken to you, that she offered you money to leave me, and that you took it. She told me you were already seeing someone else. A beta from your work. My mouth fell open. That's a lie. She never offered me money. She told me that you had a fiancé in London waiting for you. She showed me a picture. We stared at each other. The realization hit us both at the same time like a physical blow. She played us, Adrian whispered, horror dawning on his face. She orchestrated the whole thing. The fellowship offer, the timing, the lies. She told me you were happy. I choked out, tears finally spilling over. She said, let him go, Julian. Don't be the chain that holds him back from greatness. I left because I thought I was doing what was best for you. And I left because I thought you didn't love me enough to fight for us, Adrian finished. He moved then. He didn't ask permission. He scrambled across the floor and pulled me into his arms. This time, I didn't stiffen. I collapsed against him. We held each other in the nest, surrounded by the scent of our shared tragedy. We cried. Ugly, raw tears for the lost time, for the 7 months of hell we had endured because of a manipulative woman's ambition. I hate her, Adrian growled into my neck. I will never forgive her for this. She stole the pregnancy from me. She stole the birth. She almost stole our lives, I whispered. Never again, Adrian pulled back, framing my face with his hands. His eyes were fierce, burning with alpha protectiveness. She will never come near you or Leo. I swear it. She's your mother, Adrian. She's powerful. And I am the head of the house now, Adrian said coldly. She has no power here. This is my pack. You are my husband. He leaned in. The air between us crackled with electricity. His lips were inches from mine. I could feel his breath, warm, minty. My heart hammered against my ribs, but it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. I wanted him to kiss me. I wanted to erase the last year with his touch. I closed my eyes, tilting my head up. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. It wasn't a normal ring. It was insistent. Long, demanding presses. Adrian pulled back, confused. He checked his watch. It's 9 p.m. Who comes here in a storm? Maybe it's the hospital? I suggested, wiping my eyes. They call. They don't visit. Adrian stood up, his posture shifting from vulnerable lover to guarded alpha instantly. Stay here, Julian. Stay in the nest. I'm coming with you, I said, standing up. I felt stronger now. The revelation about his mother had ignited a fire in me. We were on the same side now. Julian. No. I'm tired of hiding. I kept his hoodie on, pulling it tighter around me. Let's see who it is. We walked down the grand staircase together. The doorbell rang again, impatient. Adrian walked to the heavy oak door. He looked through the peephole. His back went rigid. Every muscle in his body tensed. A low growl started in his chest, a primal sound I hadn't heard in years. What? I whispered, reaching for his arm. Who is it? He didn't answer. He unlocked the deadbolt and threw the door open. Standing on the porch, drenched in rain, holding a sleek black umbrella, was a woman. She was dressed in a pristine white trench coat that somehow repelled the mud. Her silver hair was pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes, steel gray, just like Adrian's, swept over him, then landed on me. Victoria Ashford. She didn't look apologetic. She didn't look wet. She looked like a queen surveying a conquered kingdom. Mother, Adrian said, his voice ice cold. Get off my property. Victoria smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Is that any way to greet your mother, Adrian? She stepped forward, forcing Adrian to block her path physically. Especially when I've come bearing gifts. She gestured to the driver behind her, who was holding a stack of files. I heard a rumor, she said, her voice smooth as silk and sharp as a razor, that you were harboring a stray. And a bastard child. He is my husband, Adrian snarled. And Leo is my heir. Is he? Victoria raised an eyebrow. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Because according to the paternity test I had run on the sample I acquired from the hospital lab, there are some irregularities. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? I stepped forward, my hand instinctively going to my stomach. That's impossible. Is it? Victoria looked at me with mock pity. Omegas can be so promiscuous when they are lonely. Tell me, Julian, are you sure the father isn't that nice beta boy you were crying to? The one I saw you with at the coffee shop. You're lying, Adrian said, but I saw his shoulders tense. Just a fraction. Am I? Victoria held out the paper. Why don't you read it, darling? It seems your miracle baby might not be an Ashford after all. The wind howled through the open door, blowing rain into the foyer. I looked at Adrian. He was staring at the paper in his mother's hand. Doubt. It was a tiny, microscopic flicker of doubt. But it was there, and that hurt more than anything she could have said. Take it, Victoria challenged him. Read it, and then throw this trash out where he belongs. Adrian reached out his hand. My heart stopped beating. Not from the syndrome, but from fear. End of part 4. Part 5. The rain lashed against the open doorway, soaking the hem of my borrowed sweatpants and spattering against Adrian's polished hardwood floors. But I didn't feel the cold. I was frozen by the sight of Adrian's hand reaching out, reaching for the paper that could destroy everything we had just started to rebuild. Victoria's smile was triumphant, a predator watching a trap snap shut. She placed the document in Adrian's hand with a delicate, manicured flourish. Read it, darling, she purred, her voice dripping with poison. Genetic markers don't lie. Unlike omegas. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, the familiar ache of the cardiomyopathy flaring up like a warning siren. He's going to believe her, my mind whispered. He hesitated. He listened to her. Adrian held the paper. He looked down at it. Time seemed to suspend in the hallway. I watched his eyes scan the header. Paternity exclusion report. It read in bold black letters. Subject, Leo Sterling versus Adrian Ashford. My knees buckled. I grabbed the banister for support. Adrian. I choked out, my voice barely audible over the storm outside. It's not, she's lying. Adrian didn't look at me. He kept his eyes glued to the paper. His jaw worked, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. Victoria stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. I know it hurts, son. To be tricked. To think you had a legacy, only to find out you were just a convenient wallet for a desperate ex. But it's better you know now, before you let that into our family home. She gestured at me with disdain, as if I were a stain on the rug. Adrian slowly lifted his head. He looked at his mother. Then he looked at the paper again. And then he laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a dark, terrifying sound. A low rumble that vibrated in his chest, filled with incredulity and rage. "You really think," Adrian said, his voice deadly quiet, "that I am this stupid?" Victoria's smile faltered. "Excuse me. This report," Adrian flicked the paper with his finger, "says the sample was processed at St. Jude's lab. The timestamp is 4 p.m. yesterday." "Yes," Victoria said, regaining her composure. "I have connections. I expedited it. St. Jude's lab had a power outage yesterday from 2 p.m. until midnight due to the storm," Adrian said, stepping forward, forcing Victoria to step back into the rain. "Their servers were down. No samples were processed. I know, because I tried to send a blood panel there for a patient and had to reroute it to County General." My heart restarted with a painful thud. "He knows." Victoria's face went pale. "Well, perhaps the timestamp is an error. The results are still." "The results are garbage," Adrian snarled. "Just like your lies." With a sudden, violent motion, he crumpled the paper in his fist. He didn't just crumple it, he crushed it, as if he were crushing her influence over his life. "I delivered that boy," Adrian's voice rose, booming over the thunder. "I held him before he took his first breath. I felt the bond snap into place the second his skin touched mine. I don't need a piece of paper to tell me who my son is. I know his scent. I know his heartbeat. He is mine." "Adrian, be reasonable," Victoria tried to argue, but the alpha command in Adrian's voice silenced her. "No," he roared. "You are done here. You manipulated us. You told me Julian took money. Lie. You told him I had a fiancé. Lie. You stole 7 months of my life. You stole my pregnancy. You almost killed my mate with stress. Mate. He called me his mate. Not his ex-husband. Not his partner. His mate. I did it for the family name." Victoria shrieked, her mask finally slipping, revealing the ugliness beneath. "He is weak. He has a heart condition. He comes from nothing. You are an Ashford. You need a strong alpha partner, or at least a highborn beta. Not this broken thing. This broken thing is the strongest person I have ever met," Adrian said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. "He survived your cruelty. He survived my abandonment. He survived childbirth alone. And he is still standing." Adrian pointed a shaking finger at the driveway. "Get out. If you ever come near my husband or my son again, I will forget that you gave birth to me. I will file restraining orders. I will sue you for harassment. I will use every ounce of power the Ashford name has to bury you. Do you understand?" Victoria stared at him, shocked into silence. She had never seen her perfect, obedient son like this. She looked at me one last time, a look of pure venom, before turning on her heel. "You're making a mistake," she spat over her shoulder. "He will drag you down." "He is the only thing keeping me up," Adrian countered. He slammed the heavy oak door shut. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot, final and absolute. Then, the silence returned. Adrian stood there, facing the door, his chest heaving. His hand was still clenched around the crumpled paper. I couldn't move. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. The adrenaline dump was too much for my weakened system. "Adrian," I whispered. He turned slowly. His eyes were wild, the gray swirling with emotion. When he saw me, shaking pale, clutching the banister, the rage vanished instantly, replaced by panic. "Julian." He was at my side in a second, his hands hovering over me. "Are you okay? Your chest. Do you need your meds?" "You hesitated," I blurted out. Adrian froze. "What?" "When she gave you the paper," I said, tears finally spilling over. "You hesitated. You looked at it. For a second, just for a second, you thought it might be true." Adrian looked stricken. He didn't deny it. He didn't try to gaslight me. He slumped against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the stairs, pulling me down with him. "I didn't doubt you," he said, his voice cracking. "I doubted myself. I doubted if I deserved him. I doubted if something this good, a son, a family, could actually belong to a man who made as many mistakes as I have." He looked at his hands. "For 7 months, I convinced myself you were happy without me, that you had moved on. When she handed me that paper, the old fear came back. The fear that I am not enough for you, that you found someone better. There was no one else," I said softly, reaching out to touch his knee. "There was never anyone else. Even when I hated you, I loved you." Adrian looked up, his eyes wet. "I don't deserve that." "No, you don't," I agreed honestly. "You broke me, Adrian. You left me when I needed you most. And today, you defended me, yes. But the fact that she could even get in here, the fact that her voice still has power over you. She has no power," Adrian vowed, grabbing my hand. I just cut her off. Completely. It's not about her, I said, pulling my hand back gently. It's about trust. How can we raise Leo together if you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop? If I'm always waiting for you to leave again, I won't leave. You can't promise that, I said. Life happens. Stress happens. What if Leo gets sick? What if my heart gets worse? Will you run again? Adrian stood up. He reached down and scooped me up into his arms, bridal style. Put me down, I protested weakly. No, he said firmly. I'm done talking. I'm going to show you. He carried me up the stairs, past the guest room, past the nursery where Leo was sleeping soundly. He carried me straight into the master bedroom, his sanctuary. The room smelled intensely of him. Sandalwood, rain, and now, the sharp tang of his protective pheromones. He walked over to the massive bed and laid me down in the center of the nest I had made earlier. The hoodie I was wearing was still warm. He didn't climb in with me. Instead, he walked to the dresser and pulled out a small velvet box. He came back and knelt beside the bed. This isn't a proposal, he said quickly, seeing my eyes widen. I know we're technically still married, and I know you're not ready to be my husband again in the real sense. But, he opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band. It wasn't my old wedding ring. It was new. It had a tiny, rough-cut sapphire embedded in it. This is a courting gift, Adrian said, his voice serious and solemn. In the old traditions, when an alpha has wronged his omega, he has to earn his place back. He has to court him from the beginning. He looked me in the eye. I, Adrian Ashford, promise to court you, Julian Sterling. I promise to provide for you, to protect you, to never let a day go by without proving that I am worthy of being your mate. This ring, it's a promise ring. Not of marriage, but of intention. He took the ring out. It has a GPS tracker, he added sheepishly. I blinked. What? A passive one, he said quickly. Connected to my phone. And yours is connected to mine, so you will always know where I am. You will never have to wonder if I'm in London or at the bar. You can look at your phone and see exactly where I am. And if I'm ever not where I say I am, you leave. I stared at the ring. It was extreme. It was possessive. It was exactly what my terrified, broken heart needed. Transparency. Accountability. Put it on, I whispered. Adrian slid the ring onto my right hand, not the wedding finger, but close. It fit perfectly. Now, he said, standing up and shedding his dress shirt. Move over. What are you doing? I'm scented marking you, he said matter-of-factly. My mother brought her toxicity into this house. Her scent is in the hallway. I need to scrub it out. And the best way to do that is to make sure everything in this room smells like us. He climbed into the nest beside me. He didn't touch me sexually. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, burying his face in the crook of my neck, right over my scent gland. Breathe, Julian, he murmured against my skin. Just breathe. I closed my eyes. His warmth seeped into my cold back. His heartbeat thudded steadily against my spine. Thump, thump. Thump, thump. It matched the rhythm of my own heart. For the first time in months, the chaotic flutter in my chest smoothed out. The monitor on the bedside table, which had been beeping erratically, slowed to a calm, steady rhythm. Your heart, Adrian whispered, listening. It's syncing with mine. Is that medical? I asked drowsily, the exhaustion finally catching up to me. No, Adrian kissed my shoulder. It's primal. It's the bond repairing itself. We lay there for hours. The storm outside raged on, thunder shaking the windows, but inside the nest, it was warm and safe. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. We were just existing in the same space, letting our scents mingle, letting the broken pieces of our relationship knit back together. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, the room was dark. The rain had stopped. Adrian was gone. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in my chest instantly. I sat up, clutching the sheets. He left. He lied. The ring was a trick. I scrambled for my phone on the nightstand. I unlocked it, my fingers trembling. I opened the app he had installed. A blue dot appeared on the map. Location downstairs. Kitchen. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. He hadn't left. He was just making coffee. I got out of bed. My legs felt stronger. My chest felt lighter. I walked out into the hallway. The crumpled paper from Victoria was gone. The floor was clean. I crept down the stairs. I could hear soft humming coming from the kitchen. I peeked around the corner. Adrian was there. He was wearing sweatpants and no shirt. He was holding Leo in one arm, rocking him gently while he stirred something on the stove with the other hand. Yeah, little lion, he was whispering to the baby. We're gonna make oatmeal for Papa. He likes it with cinnamon. We have to make him strong, okay? Because he's the boss. Leo gurgled, reaching for the spoon. Adrian laughed. It was a genuine, light sound. No, you can't have cinnamon yet. But soon. We have time. We have all the time in the world. I leaned against the doorframe, watching them. A lump formed in my throat. This was it. This was the life I had dreamed of when I stared at the positive pregnancy test alone in my bathroom. This was the family I thought I had lost. But there was still a shadow. Victoria's threat. He will drag you down. And my own heart. The doctor said I was recovering, but broken heart syndrome leaves scars. My heart would always be fragile. One bad shock, one more betrayal, and it might just give out for good. Adrian turned around. When he saw me standing there, his face softened into a smile that made my knees weak. Morning, he said. Hungry. Starving, I answered. He walked over and kissed my forehead. Sit. I'll serve you. As I sat at the island, watching my alpha serve me breakfast, I touched the silver ring on my finger. We had survived the birth. We had survived the confrontation. We had survived the truth. But as I looked out the window at the clearing storm, I couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part wasn't over. Getting him back was one thing. Keeping him and learning to live without the constant fear of losing him, that was the real challenge. And I wasn't sure if my heart was strong enough for it yet. End of part 5. Part 6. 2 months had passed since the storm. The snow in the garden had melted, revealing patches of stubborn green grass fighting to breathe, much like me. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in the master bedroom, buttoning a crisp white shirt. My hands, which used to tremble so violently I couldn't hold a spoon, were steady now. The dark circles under my eyes had faded, replaced by a healthy flush. I had gained weight, the good kind. My collarbones no longer looked like sharp ridges threatening to pierce my skin. You look. I turned around. Adrian was leaning against the doorframe, holding a sleeping Leo against his chest. He was wearing his signature charcoal suit, looking every inch the powerful chief of surgery. But his eyes were soft, unguarded. Healthy, I supplied, smoothing down the fabric. Breathtaking, he corrected, walking over to me. He kissed my cheek, lingering there to inhale my scent. And healthy. Dr. Eris is going to be pleased with your results today. Today was the day. The final cardiology appointment. The day I would find out if my heart had healed enough to stop the medication. The day I would be declared fit. And truthfully, I was terrified. Being fit meant I had no medical excuse to stay here anymore. It meant the bubble we had lived in, this protective domestic cocoon where Adrian cooked me oatmeal and we watched movies with Leo between us, was technically over. I'm nervous, I admitted, reaching out to touch Leo's tiny hand. He was growing so fast. He looked more like Adrian every day, but he had my smile. Don't be. Adrian shifted Leo to one arm so he could wrap the other around my waist. Your heart is strong, Julian. I listen to it every night while you sleep. It beats for us now. It always did, I whispered. We drove to the hospital in silence, but it was a comfortable silence. Adrian's hand rested on my thigh the entire way, his thumb tracing soothing circles. When we walked into the cardiology department, the nurses smiled at us. They knew. Everyone knew. The Ice King Alpha Doctor had melted for his Omega ex-husband. Dr. Eris, a no-nonsense beta woman, ran the echocardiogram. I lay on the table, watching the screen, watching the rhythmic whoosh-whoosh of the organ that had almost given up on me. Well, she said finally, wiping the gel off my chest. It's remarkable. I sat up, clutching my shirt. Is it bad? On the contrary, she smiled, turning the screen toward us. Your ejection fraction is 65%. Normal. The thickening in the left ventricle has reversed completely. Physically, Mr. Sterling, your heart is perfectly healthy. It's as if the trauma never happened. She looked at Adrian, then back at me. We call it social buffering in medical terms. But in layman's terms, love cured you. The proximity to your bonded alpha reversed the cortisol damage faster than any drug could have. I looked at Adrian. He was beaming. A genuine, unrestrained smile that reached his eyes. You're free, Julian, Dr. Eris said, signing the discharge papers. No more meds. No more restrictions. You can go live your life. Free. The word echoed in my head as we walked back to the car. I was free. I could go back to work. I could get my own apartment. I could be independent again. Adrian buckled Leo into his car seat, then turned to me. The smile was gone, replaced by a masked intensity. So, he he said, leaning against the car door. Good news. Great news, I said, forcing a smile. Celebration dinner tonight? He asked. I've booked a table at Le Jardin. Just us. Mrs. Gable is watching Leo. Okay, I nodded. Sounds perfect. But as he drove us home, a cold knot formed in my stomach. Was this it? Was this the "we need to talk about the future" dinner? Now that I wasn't a charity case, would he expect me to move out? To go back to being just co-parents? Le Jardin was the restaurant where we had our first date 3 years ago. It was intimate, lit by candles and draped in ivy. Adrian had rented out the entire rooftop terrace. We sat at a small table overlooking the city lights. The wind was gentle, carrying the scent of jasmine. You rented the whole roof? I asked, looking around at the empty tables. I didn't want interruptions, Adrian said, pouring me a glass of sparkling water. I was still avoiding alcohol, just in case. Tonight is important. He looked nervous. Adrian Ashford never looked nervous. He was the man who performed open-heart surgery without breaking a sweat. But right now, his hands were fidgeting with the silverware. Julian, he started, his voice rough. These past 2 months, they have been the happiest of my life. Waking up to you. Coming home to you. Being a father to Leo. Me too, I said softly. But today changed things, he continued, looking down. You're healed. You don't need me anymore. You don't need my care, or my house, or my protection to survive. My heart stopped. Here it comes. The let's be friends speech. I know, I whispered, gripping my napkin. I've been looking at apartments online. I can probably move out by the end of the month. What? Adrian's head snapped up. No. No. God, no. He reached across the table and grabbed my hand, nearly knocking over the candle. That is the opposite of what I want. Julian, are you listening to me? I thought you said I didn't need you. You don't, Adrian said passionately. That's the point. You stayed because you were sick. Because you had to. Now you have a choice. You can walk away. You are strong enough to leave me. He took a deep breath, his thumb stroking my knuckles. And that terrifies me. Because I don't want you to need me, Julian. I want you to want me. I want you to choose me. Not because of biology, or a baby, or a heart condition. But because you love me. I stared at him. The city lights blurred in my vision as tears filled my eyes. You idiot. I laughed, a wet, choked sound. You complete idiot. I stood up. Adrian stood up too, looking alarmed. I walked around the table and stopped in front of him. I reached up and cupped his face, feeling the rough stubble on his jaw. I stopped needing you weeks ago, Adrian, I confessed. My heart stopped hurting the day you brought me the nest blankets. I stayed because I wanted to. I stayed because every time you look at Leo, I fall in love with you all over again. I stayed because you are my home. Adrian let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He pulled me against him, burying his face in my neck. I love you, he whispered into my skin. I love you so much it hurts. I love you too, I replied. Always. Even when I hated you, I loved you. He pulled back, his eyes searching mine. Then let's make it real. Let's make it permanent. He reached into his jacket pocket. But instead of a ring box, he pulled out a thick envelope. What is this? I asked. Open it. I opened the envelope. Inside were legal documents. Petition for divorce. I looked at him, confused. You want a divorce? Look at the last page, he urged. I flipped to the back. It was the signature page. My signature was missing. But across the entire document, in thick black marker, someone had written void. And underneath, a lighter. Burn it, Adrian said. Burn the past. Burn the doubt. I don't want to just be technically married to you because we forgot to file paperwork. I want to choose you again. He flicked the lighter. A small flame danced in the night air. I didn't hesitate. I held the corner of the divorce papers to the flame. We watched together as the paper curled, blackened, and turned to ash, carrying away the pain of the last year with the smoke. When the last ember died out, Adrian dropped to one knee. This time, he did pull out a ring box. It wasn't the simple silver courting ring. It was my original wedding band, the gold one with the engraving inside. Forever. But next to it was a second ring. A thin, platinum band studded with diamonds. An eternity ring. Julian Sterling, Adrian said, looking up at me with absolute devotion. Will you do me the extraordinary honor of being my bonded mate? Will you let me claim you, protect you, and love you until my last breath? Will you marry me again? Tears streamed down my face, hot and fast. Yes. Yes, Adrian. 1,000 times yes. He slid the rings onto my finger. They felt heavy, permanent. They felt right. He stood up and kissed me. A deep, searing kiss that promised everything. It wasn't the tentative kiss of a recovering patient. It was the passionate claim of a husband. "Let's go home," he growled against my lips. "I want to show you how much I love you." The bedroom was dark, lit only by the moonlight filtering through the open curtains. The air was thick with our scents, sandalwood and rain, vanilla and milk. We lay tangled together on the bed, skin to skin, no barriers between us. The intimacy was slow, reverent. Adrian touched me as if I were made of glass, worshipping every scar, every stretch mark from the pregnancy. "You are beautiful," he murmured, kissing the faint line on my stomach where Leo had rested for 9 months. "You are a miracle." "Make me yours, Adrian," I whispered, arching into his touch. "Properly. I want the bond back. I want to feel you in my head." The mating bite. It was the ultimate commitment in our dynamic. It connected our minds, our emotions. We had lost it when the bond faded during our separation. Re-establishing it was painful, intense, and permanent. Adrian hovered over me, his eyes glowing in the dark. He brushed the hair away from the scent gland on my neck, the sensitive spot that connected directly to my soul. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice trembling with restraint. "Once I do this, there is no going back. I will be in your mind. You will feel my possessiveness, my fear, my love. Always. I don't want to be anywhere else," I said. "Bite me, Alpha." Adrian groaned, a low, guttural sound of surrender. He lowered his head. His teeth grazed the sensitive skin of my neck. Then he bit down. A sharp, electric shock jolted through my body. I gasped, arching my back, my fingers digging into his shoulders. It wasn't pain, it was pure, raw energy. Flash. I saw images that weren't mine. Adrian crying in a lonely apartment in London. Adrian holding Leo for the first time, terror and love warring in his chest. Adrian looking at me tonight, thinking I was the most beautiful thing in the universe. His emotions flooded me. Love. Overwhelming, consuming, terrifying love. And he felt mine. My forgiveness. My trust. My hope. As he licked the mark, sealing the bond, I felt a click in my chest. The empty space that had been there for a year was suddenly filled. He was there. He was with me. "I can feel you," I whispered, tears of joy sliding into my hair. "I'm never leaving." His voice echoed in my mind and in the room simultaneously. "We are one. Finally." "No. No. Mine." The sound of a toddler's shriek echoed through the garden, followed by a splash. I looked up from my laptop, shielding my eyes from the summer sun. Adrian. He's in the fountain again. Adrian came jogging around the corner of the house, looking disheveled and happy. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing a small tattoo on his forearm, Leo's birth date and my initials. "I got him. I got him." Adrian laughed, scooping a soaking wet Leo out of the decorative fountain. Leo, now a rambunctious 18-month-old, was giggling uncontrollably, clutching a rubber duck he had seemingly liberated from the bathtub. "He is exactly like you," I sighed, walking over to them with a towel. "Stubborn, impulsive, and obsessed with water." "He gets his looks from me," Adrian grinned, shaking his wet hair like a dog, spraying me with water. "But he gets his brains from you. He already knows how to unlock my phone." "That's not brains, that's dangerous," I laughed, drying Leo's face. Life was chaotic, loud, messy, and perfect. I was back at work part-time, writing a column for a parenting magazine about single fatherhood and reconciliation. Adrian was still chief, but he had cut his hours. He never missed dinner. He never missed a milestone. Victoria hadn't been seen since that night in the storm. Rumor had it she moved to the south of France. We didn't care. The locks were changed, and the legal papers were watertight. She was a ghost of the past. "Hey," Adrian said, putting Leo down on the grass to waddle after